class for today. There are no extra props required but you and your mat. We're going to be working it through the feet, really grounding down into the earth, working it through that space. So whenever you have your space to practice in, we're going to go ahead and meet in Tadasana at the top of your mat. And as you come onto the top of your mat, go ahead and find some freedom by shifting your weight forward and back, side to side. Lifting and lowering the toes, the heels. Maybe rocking on the inner and outer blades of the feet. Maybe creating circles in your space. Whatever feels comfortable for you to explore all the edges of the foot, as well as the entirety of the sole of the foot. So kind of tracing the edges and then filling all of the gaps in between. And just see how that feels. See if any points feel a little more stuck than others. Are there certain edges where you feel a little less confident, maybe even losing your balance just a pinch? And then even incorporating the toes, gripping those toes down into the earth and then lifting them up, spreading them nice and wide. Just see where that exploration takes you. What feels challenging and awkward, what comes easily. And after you've had your few moments of playing around, go ahead and slowly start to find a nice, settled, and strong space. Grounding down through the soles of the feet, maybe a little bit extra through that big toe. As you find a nice subtle lift through the center arches of both feet. Just a nice gentle grasp onto the earth, onto the mat. Like you're scooping up energy from the earth below you and pulling it all the way up through the legs, through the hips. As you press those hip points forward. Maybe softly tucking that tailbone underneath you. So a gentle lift to that low belly. And you're just finding a nice, tall, centered self here. And in today's class, we're just focusing on working at that space all the way from the ground up. Arms can come alongside your body, palms facing forward, maybe even slowly closing your eyes. And just feeling the soles of your feet on the earth. Taking note of where your weight is primarily resting. Are you more in the toes? Are you more in the heels? Outside, inside edge of your feet. Are you favoring the right side more over the left side? And with whatever you're noticing, are you able to even out the playing field to the best of your ability? Just take 3 breaths here. To integrate, to feel that connection in your space. Go ahead and slowly blink the eyes open. On your next inhale, sweep those arms up and overhead, and as you do so, come up nice and slowly onto the toes, lifting those heels up as tall as you can. Reaching those fingertips up nice and tall, and then exhale, lower the heels, hands to heart center. 2 more rounds, inhale, rise up high into the toes, sweep those arms down and around yourself as you reach those fingertips up towards the sky. Exhale, hands to heart center, heels lower. One more round, deep inhale, heels lift. And exhale, hands to our center, heels come to the earth. Nice and slow. I want you to slowly start to shift your way into that right foot. Maybe even keeping a soft bend in the right knee if that feels comfortable, nice and stable. And then slowly lift that left leg off the floor, coming onto the toe tips. Feeling your strength in that right leg get even stronger. And then maybe slowly bring that left knee up closer towards your chest. Feel the wiggles and wobbles and feel yourself kind of self-correct in that space. Just feeling nice and strong and engaged all the way through the foot, through the leg, into the hip, into the belly. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly lower that left leg down, bring both feet back to hips width distance apart. And then coming over onto the left side. So slowly shift your weight over towards the left, maybe keeping a slight bend in that knee if that feels comfortable. And then lifting that right foot nice and slow, maybe coming onto the toe tips to start. Keeping the integration of lift through the sole of that left foot, and slowly bringing that right knee in towards the chest. Grounding down through that left big toe, lifted through the inner arch. Staying lifted through that left hip. Hands can stay at heart center, by your sides, wherever they feel stabilizing and helpful here in this space for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and slowly lower that right foot down. Feel free to wiggle out the feet if you feel like the soles of your feet were working hard in that space. Feel free to take our little rock forward and back, settle back into that space of equilibrium, left to right, front to back. And then our next weight shift, we're going to come into tree pose. So slowly shift that weight over into the right foot. Feel the strength through the sole of that foot as the left foot plucks off the floor. And stay here if you're more comfortable in this space. But if you'd like to challenge your balance a little bit more, go ahead and allow the sole of that left foot to come anywhere on the inner lining of that right leg. So if you're still working towards or working on your balance, you can always keep that left foot kickstanded just inside that right foot. So we can always stay here in that space. It can be on the inside edge of that shin, the thigh, up and towards the inner groin, wherever you are able to maintain nice and comfortably. Here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and release the connection left to right. Left knee comes back in towards the chest, and then slowly lower that left foot back down towards the earth. Coming on to that left side. Find your equilibrium to start, even left and right. And then slowly give a little bit more weight towards that left side. Strong through the sole of that foot as you pluck the right foot off the earth. Right knee comes in towards the chest, or it stays low, hovering from the earth, whatever feels good for you. Move in a space you're comfortable with. And then we're going to open that right thigh up into tree pose. So make that connection happen, left to right. The sole of that right foot can plant anywhere along the inner lining of that left leg. Staying strong here in your connection between left foot and your mat, and right foot to the inner thigh, or the inner lining of that left leg. We're here for 5. Hands can stay at heart center or along your hips for 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and release right foot from the left leg. The right knee comes back up in towards the chest. And then go ahead and plant that right foot down towards the earth, hips width distance apart. Inhale, rise up high into the toes, reach those arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands come through heart center. Heels drop. And then come all the way down into a forward fold. Hands come down to the earth. Finishing that exhale. Inhale, find a halfway lift. Hips pull back. Chest lifts forward. And then exhale. Find that fold once more. And then go ahead and wiggle the feet a little bit wider. So not terribly wide, but it may be slightly wider than hips with distance apart. And go ahead and scoop the palms underneath the soles of the feet so that the toes are tapping those wrist creases there. Kind of working a little bit into the hands, a little bit into the feet and the ankles. Just finding that connection. As the pads of the feet press down into the heel of the hand. Using that connection to draw the chest closer down towards the earth as those hips are still lifting up and back behind you. And allowing that head to hang heavy in between the shoulders. Here for 3 more breaths. Go ahead and release the palms from underneath the feet. And go ahead and step the left foot back in space. The right foot back. And then go ahead and drop the knees. And then walk the hands back so you can bring the hips back towards the heels. As the hips come back towards the heels, go ahead and check in with your toes and try to tuck all 10 toes underneath you. Sometimes that pinky toe likes to kind of hang out on its own. So see if we can get that last little toe there to tuck underneath that. Stay a little space all the way through the sole of the foot. And hands rest on the thighs. Find your breath. Breathing into those toes, the sole of the foot. This pose can be quite intense if this isn't a movement you typically explore in your classes. It's definitely not something that you explore in your day-to-day. Maybe you can even close your eyes so you can tune inward, finding your inner strength to hold here for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and come forward, come on out of that into tabletop. Tuck the toes, maybe to give them a little bit of a tap. And then go ahead and bring your heels to your hips towards your heels with the toes untucked. Feeling that change in sensation. Maybe you feel really tight within the soles of the feet, so that other pose was intense. Toes pose was intense. Maybe you have just stiffer or tighter ankles in general, so being here in this space can feel more intense. And know that you don't ever have to force yourself into these shapes if it feels too much on any of the joints as you're moving through. It can be helpful to have a blanket nearby to either slip that underneath your sit bones, giving you a little bit of a lift, taking some pressure off the shins. You can always have a blanket underneath you. If you feel like the contact of the tops of your ankles, even your shins feels uncomfortable, maybe you don't have enough cushion underneath you, so that could be helpful. And again, maybe just closing your eyes, coming into a more introverted space. Here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And go ahead and blink the eyes open. Go ahead and come into tabletop position. Go ahead and take the pressure off the tops of the feet once more. Maybe tucking the toes and kind of just reversing, coming into an opposite movement here. And then go ahead and, from tabletop position, go ahead and extend the right leg long. And you're just going to work back and forth into that back leg. So rolling over the big toe, really stretching out through those little digits as you shift your weight forward. And then as you shift your weight back, you're really driving the heel back in space. Stretching through the back line of the leg. And then rolling forward. Be as intentional as you can, really rolling off onto that big toe. And then driving that heel back, feeling the pads of the toes all come in contact with the mat as you drive that heel back in space. Shift your weight forward, roll all the way onto the tip of that big toe. Like it's going to lift off the earth, but it doesn't. And then you slowly roll all the way back, driving that heel back in space. And one more round, rolling forward, really like you're trying to flick dust or dirt back behind you with those big toes. So you're about to flick them off the earth, but you don't, and then you drive that heel, let it sink back down. Holding here in this space, feeling that stretch. Go ahead and come back, right knee meets the left. Switching sides, go ahead and extend that left leg back behind you. Really feeling that drive of the heel right from the get-go, and then slowly roll forward, pressing through that big toe again, like you're trying to flick those toes back behind you. Like you're gonna point and lift that foot back in space, but then you're going to come back, driving that heel behind you, feeling the length within the back line of the leg. Roll forward onto that big toe. Exhale, sink into that heel. Feel the stretch, feel the space, feel the length in the back of that leg. Shift your weight forward. Inhale. Exhale, drive that heel back behind you. Inhale, forward. Exhale, drive. Last one, inhale, come all the way forward. Really try to flick those toes back behind you. And then exhale, sink that heel all the way down like you're gonna make contact with the mat, but knowing we're not all that close. Here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll back forward, left knee meets the right. Untuck the toes, sit those hips back towards the heel once more. And then we're gonna bring the hands on either side of the knees, the forward part of your thighs, and go ahead and turn those palms out away from one another. So at like a 45-degree angle facing that way. Click those heels towards one another. And then from this space, you're gonna drive through the tops of the feet. Bring those knees in towards your chest, pressing strong through the heels of the hands. Coming into this really strong and engaged space. And just here for 5. Keep those hips low. 4, 3, 2, 1, and lower all the way down. Go ahead and cross the ankles. Roll over top, bringing your seat down towards the floor. And then extending those legs out in front of you. Give them a good wiggle, roll those ankles out, flare, and scrunch those toes for me. Both directions, working in both that flexion and extension of the ankle can feel pretty intense, and then starting off with a lot of engagement within the sole of the feet. You just feel like a lot of attention, especially if you're in shoes a lot of the day, even at home, if you're in slippers or things like that. Our toes, our feet might not necessarily breathe as much as we'd like them to. So go ahead, roll those ankles out, explore spaces that feel good. And then as we're kind of exploring these spaces without intention, just kind of moving at will, I want to try to isolate some movements with you and just see how they feel for you in your space. So if you'd like to have something underneath your ankles to kind of lift off from the earth, feel free. But otherwise, you can just sit as you are. Just kind of have your arms kickstand back behind you so that you're sitting up nice and tall. You can always slip something underneath you to have a nice lifted seat. Again, whatever you need to stay comfortable. And then your legs are just extended out in front of you. And then a movement that we're all quite familiar with is just lifting the tops of the feet, those toes, back towards you. So you're feeling that muscle in the front of your shin turn on. So feeling that movement, and then pointing those toes down towards the top of the mat. Feeling a nice stretch through the top of the foot. Maybe feeling a little engagement within the backside of your lower leg. And then so move through that space about 5 rounds. Lifting up as strong as you can. And then pointing down as strong as you can. And when you move through this space, trying to keep the rest of the lower body still. And that's usually the trickier part than the movement itself. The rest of our joints kind of want to help out and move along with us. And so to the best of your ability when moving through this space, just keeping those joints, those hips and knees in the same degree of motion that they are as you start, okay? So as you lift the tops of the feet towards you, those knees stay generally in that same degree of flexion or extension. Then you point the toes down, stay in the curves. So you're feeling as much of that motion through the foot and the ankle as you're able. One more round, lift those toes up. And point those toes down. Really trying to reach through the top of the foot, so not just the toes, you're really stretching all the way through that ankle. And then come on up, maybe give yourself a wiggle or two. And then the next motion, much trickier and easier said than done, but we're gonna work through moving the outer blades of the feet out and then the inner edges of the feet in towards one another like you're gonna kiss the big toes. Now this can be really challenging. The movement is small and the rest of the leg is definitely going to want to help. So we'll kind of move together in conjunction, or if it's easier just to move one foot at a time, feel free to do that as well. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by moving the inner edges of the inner arches of both feet toward one another. So it's like you're scooping the sole of the foot up towards you, like you want to look underneath the sole of your foot, incorporating the entirety of the foot and the ankle. And then slowly push the inner edges of the feet away from you as you pull the outer blade, the pinky toe edge of the foot, out and away. Pull the inner arches towards one another. Really scoop the soles of the feet towards one another so that they can take a peek at each other. And then go ahead and flip the outer edges of the feet away. And it can be helpful to think of your feet in stirrups so that rather than kind of moving through the toes or the top of the foot, it's like you have something in the middle of your foot pulling everything together in unison. So sometimes thinking of your foot, your ankle having stirrups around it can be helpful. Kind of like you have this invisible twine pulling those inner arches in towards your midline. And then you have something attached to that outer blade, that pinky edge of the foot, spinning it out towards the outside edges of your hips. Pulling the inner blade in towards your center. Scooping those soles of the feet towards one another. And then pulling the outer blades of the feet towards your hips. So just give yourself a few rounds, a few moments to see if we're able to make that connection happen. Again, don't be too hard on yourself. It's not an easy motion to do. Finishing on your last little round here, whatever makes you feel even. And then go ahead and wiggle it out.
Go ahead and bring the soles of the feet towards one another. Coming into a nice little butterfly, feel free to take advantage of this little opportunity to maybe massage the soles of the feet, maybe kind of stretch out through those toes, kind of pulling them back or scrunching them in towards one another. Just kind of give them a little massage for their hard work of the day. And then it's always nice to find a little bit of space through the hips, so draw those the outer edges of the knees down and away from each other. Find a nice tall spine. And then go ahead and slowly fold forward. Elbows to the inner thighs. Reaching the crown of the head forward. Sit bones keep their connection to the earth, but they're kind of flicking back behind you ever so slightly to keep the length in the spine. Keeping those toes hugged towards one another between the palms of your hands. Here for 5. Slow, steady breath for 4. Deep inhales, 3. Full exhales, 2. Feel your connection for your final count. And slowly walk all the way up. Feet come down to the earth. Find a nice little bear sit. Feel the connection, sole of the feet down onto your mat. Maybe a little windshield wiper back and forth. Just for another count or so before finding your way to center. Finding that bear sit. Really feel that nice little subtle grip of the toes into the earth. Hug those shins in towards you as you find a nice tall spine. And go ahead and close your eyes. Feeling your connection between the feet, the sit bones, onto the earth. Feeling nice and grounded and feeling lifted through the spine from this grounded space. Just taking this moment, this opportunity to feel a moment of gratitude and appreciation for finding this connection of the feet onto the earth. Hopefully that brings a sense of grounding to you in your space, in your being. And taking that sensation, that feeling with you into the moments as you step off your mat. Maybe walking a little bit differently, maybe walking a little bit lighter with a little bit more freedom, with a little bit more intention. And see what it brings out. I hope you all enjoyed this short, sweet little class to spend a little extra time focusing on the feet, on the mobility of the ankles as it carries you throughout the entirety of your day, and they don't necessarily get the same kind of love that the rest of your body may get in other kinds of movement and exercise. So as always, thank you so much for practicing with me. And if you do, please subscribe to my channel, like whatever videos that you choose to flow with. And I look forward to seeing y'all next time on the mat. Have an awesome rest of your day.